Let's hit the ground running. Democrats fail America's youth as dozens of schools in Illinois and Maryland have zero kids proficient in math. It's not only Illinois and Maryland, and it's not just math. Yada, 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 yada. Like, you have to remember, this shit is just one giant racket, both in terms of the teachers' unions, which are a racket because all they do is funnel money to themselves. And it's a racket in terms of have, you know, kids be dumb enough to like do all the work and pay all the taxes, not question why they're getting reamed and why they can't afford anything anymore. So apparently, a bunch of metrics came out. First one's like, not a single student can do math at grade level in 53 Illinois schools. A single student can read at grade level in 30 Illinois schools. And 23 Baltimore City schools had zero students test proficient in math during the most recent Maryland state testing. This includes 10 high schools. Take your kids out of these schools, one community activist told Fox of Baltimore. Yeah. 23 Baltimore schools have zero students proficient in math per state results. Baltimore County Public Schools spend $14,883 per student each year. It has an annual revenue of $1,891,000. Oh wait, that's a billion. That's three more decimal places. 1,891,725,000 kids can't do math at a great level. Yeah, Baltimore is Democrat run, but we already knew all this. So yeah, this is what one of many reasons why education doesn't mean shit anymore. It's almost like it's all by design. Okay, staying on the school topic, this one's a little more insidious and like the grift that is modern education. I can understand it and respect it to a certain degree, given that it's a grift and stuff. But this is just like lazy thinking they're smarter than what they are. Pentagon secretly institutionalized DEI in its K to 12 public schools. So, for those who aren't aware, like many American institutions, particularly of the government, in terms of like Department of Defense and whatnot, like military and all that jazz, has their own system for everything, including schools. In a congressional hearing last spring, Gil Cisneros, then Undersecretary of Military Readiness, announced that the Pentagon was closing its newly formed Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with its K 12 school system and reassigned its controversial DEI chief after a 10-month internal investigation. Spoiler alert, none of this actually really happened. They did kind of shuffle things around and carried on business as usual and hoping people would forget. Yeah, pretty much going over what I just said. It was just a con in that they actually continued on and they just shuffle things around. The DoD relentlessly promoted DEI ideologies to school children serving families through educational contractors with millions of dollars taxpayer funding. Here are some examples of what happened in Pentagon schools. Chat rooms to facilitate teacher-student conversations that are closed off to parents about sexuality and gender and likely without their knowledge or consent. Seen this before. Engaging 4-year-olds in alphabet soup conversations at elementary schools at a perfect time to really show students the diversity of gender expression and gender activity. Fuck these people. Solidarity with neo-Marxist Black Lives Matter organization to encourage teachers to challenge our beliefs and examine our own biases and reflect on how we need to evaluate the structures and systems of our classrooms. Fuck off. Get out of the classrooms. Leave the kids alone. Video content on dissent and equity to help educators facilitate classroom conversations and much needed discussions about implicit bias and systemic racism, human rights, equity, social justice, dissent, protest, and empathy. Some of these things are not like the others. Marxist activism to dismantle systems, power privilege. Well, okay, no, I have to backtrack out there. They want to dissent and protest and stuff to destabilize the American hegemony. so that you can institute communism. So it does actually serve a purpose. Video content, dissent, equity, help education. Okay. Marxist activism to dismantle system power privilege, suggesting refusal to teach whitewash curriculum instead of social justice rather than heroes, holidays, and celebrations. Teaching handbook that recommends critical conversations with students about race, identity, privilege, and the way injustice affects our lives in society. These explicit conversations provoke strong emotions, and crying students are expected. Fuck these cunts. Transparency problems, going how they've largely going over how they hit all this here stuff, but then we're able to find out after the fact. We sought more information on steering committee, but our DoD reacted or hid. One member names, agendas, materials, minutes, discussions. Impact committee having the whole education environment at the Pentagon. The extent of these redactions are so ridiculous. Almost every slide from the 14-page slide deck presented at the committee meeting had been redacted, except for a title page and the page defining DEI. Resemble a barcode. It would do the administratum of the Imperium man proud. Oh, fuck off. Term privilege. It's like wheel of power and privilege. Oh, fuck off. So, yeah. If, even though if they say they'll backtrack, they never do. That's just the way it is. Mayo Clinic vaccine research director calls for expanding detection of silent COVID vaccine risk. A little too late for that there, bud. And fuck off, Mayo Clinic. You guys peddle this here shit too. Dr. Gregory Poland, director of Mayo Clinic's Vaccine Research Group, has called for more rigorous detection of vaccine adverse events after suffering a COVID 19 vaccine adverse event. Oh, yeah, I remember reading this now. So, yes. So, even though the Mayo Clinic were purveyors of the gene therapy vaccine shot and stuff, once one of their head doctors had a adverse reaction to the gene therapy, all of a sudden, magically, it's kind of like, oh, this might be actually a problem since it affects me now. It's like, motherfucker, you pieces of shit don't pay attention to history. I swear to fucking God. While vaccines have overwhelmingly been positive safety profiles, essential to address concerns about potential adverse events comprehensively and compassionately. Fuck you, Dr. Poland. And his co-author, Dr. Steve Black, on the Global Vaccine Data Network, wrote in their commentary published in the journal Vaccine. Some of these reactions are immediate and easily observable, measurable. Others, however, are immediately obvious and even clinically silent or cryptic, making them challenging to identify and link directly to a vaccine. Dr. Poland, lead author, suffered from what he deemed a cryptic adverse event. In 2021, soon after his second Moderna shot, Dr. Poland was driven back from the clinic and he suddenly heard a whistling sound in his ear. It was like somebody suddenly blew a dog whistle in my ear, he told MedPage Today. It's been pretty much unrelenting. He has since attributed his ties to the COVID 19 vaccine and become vocal for advocating better vaccine adverse events surveillance programs. Too little, too late. But it's kind of funny. These little shits get their come to God moments. Like, oh wait, it affects me too. I have very little sympathy for these people. Going over usual stuff we cover, like myocarditis, other adverse effects, like reproduction gets shot, and blood and all that jazz. We covered before in many different itinerations and stuff, but the main part is like one of the head guys at the Mayo Clinic who was like a cheerleader for this here shit ends up eating crow, and it's just like, let me just get out my little tiny violin. Beep. Thank you, phone. Okay, this one's a little wild, also infuriating, but from the usual crowd. South Dakota forced to apologize to transgender activists and pay $300,000. South Dakota has issued an apology to a transgender advocacy group and must pay $300,000 under an agreement that settles the lawsuit against Governor Kristi Noem and the state health secretary over a terminated contract. I'm getting deja vu. I feel like I might have covered something along this line not too long ago, and this might be just the update on it. Curse you, memory. Transformation Project, nonprofit. I provide suicide prevention and other services to transgender people. In South Dakota, sued Miss Noam and Secretary of Health Melissa Magasit. Magstad. Stad. Stad. I think the T silent. Last year, after state canceled a contract to hire and train a community health worker to connect with members of the alphabet soup community to health services, the contract included a $136,000 state administered federal grant, which transgender group received roughly $39,000 according to its attorneys. Lynn Valenti, South Dakota Deputy Health Secretary, alleged that the contract cancellation letter, a transgender group failed to perform certain contractual obligations. Attorneys for the group accused Ms. Valenti of having canceled the agreement for political reasons. U.S. District Judge Karen E. Oh my God, you can't make this shit up. Karen E. Schreier ruled on February 5th to dismiss the lawsuit after parties jointly asked for a dismissal after entering into a settlement. As part of settlement, South Dakota is required to pay $300,000 and issue a public apology. Blah blah blah. Yeah, so it looks like it was just canceled out of hand, but they're alleging that it was like, yeah, the usual stuff. It's like, oh, you're just a bigot conservative and stuff. And it's just like, well, how do you prove that? So it's just like, eh. Here's the rub. No, six law banning signs. I love Arrowheads, but man, they really need the spell checker. Noam signs law banning trans surgery for youth. Ms. Noam, a Republican, has been vocal opponent of transgender procedures for young people. In February 2023, she signed a Help Not Harm bill into law banning certain medical surgical interventions such as puberty blockers and general surgery for minors. South Dakota's kids are our future. With this legislation, we are protecting kids from harmful permanent medical procedures. Noam said in a statement, I will always stand for next generation of South Dakotans. Yeah, that's probably where the little dizzy started coming in. So, I don't know. It's kind of weird, even just kowtowing, but it's probably, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, probably easier just pay him off the fuck off and break the contract. That's probably what it comes down to, honestly. Okay, here's the first one in a few. My memory is fine. Biden fumes before confusing Egypt's Sisi with the president of Mexico. In less than 50 minutes, I'm just going to read this one verbatim because it's pretty funny. In less than 15 minutes, President Biden approved the special counsel wrote here, right, and confirmed all the concerns about his fitness for office. As we detailed earlier, he wrote in his report that he would not suggest bringing charges against the president for his mishandling classified documents because Biden would likely present himself to the jury as he did during his interview with our office as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. The president, having seen dead people numerous times this week, was apparently displeased with the report and decided the correct course of action was a rare press conference to set the world straight on his mental acuity. And it went as well as you would expect. It did not go well. He welcomed the special counsel's decision not to bring charges. The bottom line is the matter. The bottom line is the matter is now closed. Biden asserted with respect to the report, but then he proceeded to throw his staff under the bus. I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing, he said. Things appeared in my garage, things that came out of my house, things that were moved, things were moved not by me, but my staff. He continued. Then he took issue with the special counsel's report questioning his mental acuity around the timing of his son's death, and angry old man mode was unleashed. How in the hell dare you raise that? Frankly, when I asked the question, I thought myself was none of their damn business. Biden thundered. Biden started to say he wore his son's rosary every day since the day Bo died, but stopped when he appeared to forget where the rosary came from. Every more Memorial Day, we hold a service remembering him, attended by his friends and family and the people who loved him. Biden continued after a pause. I don't need anyone. Anyone to remind me when he passed away. The mumbling continued and opened up as press conference. The question is not a great idea in hindsight. Constantly defending himself against allegations of failing memory, Biden appeared to snap when Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy asked Biden, "How bad is your memory? My memory is so bad, I let you speak." Biden said, "My memory's fine. Take a look at what I've done since becoming president." Doocy press, pointing the special counsel's description of Biden as an elderly, well meaning man. I am well meaning and I am an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. That's debatable. Biden reacted, "I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need a recommendation." Biden's rage reached the zenith when the CNN reporter began to ask a question about the American people's concern about his mental state. Our perspective is widely held according to many polls. We've covered this before. The American people have been watching and they have expressed concern about your age. The reporter said, "That's your judgment. That's your judgment. That's not the judgment of the press." Biden shouted back at her. Oh, God. Biden also brazenly claimed that he vowed to be a president for everyone, whether they were from red state or green state. Oh, the American empire and its collapse. Just have to laugh or you cry. And then, as his piece de resistance, after initially walking out, the president called Israel's response to Gaza over the top and mistakenly referred to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as president of Mexico. Initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him and convinced him to open the gate. He did not correct himself. Egyptian folk musicians. Oh, God. Egyptian drug lord. Oh, God. In a press conference trying to prove that he's not senile and thus competent enough to stand trial, wild stuff. Biden's senile, there is no case. Biden isn't the senile, so there is a case. Good point. Watch the full 50-minute Starfish shit show here. I'd rather not. I just realized I don't have Discord channel open. Streaming Discord. Because I see some ones in general, it's not showing up on screen. Biden's brain mushed. Yes. Yes, Pipgoon, it is. It is mush. I'll wait for you to finish typing so I can see if it pops up in OBS properly. It should, because I have it open now. Is there anything else? That's about it. There it is. You dropped the presser right after Tucker's Putin thing, too. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there was also a follow up immediately afterwards of the. Trooper told the Tucker Putin. I think I might have one or two. I may have one or two articles coming up, but that there was its own particular shit show, and I think Biden had a comment after it to the effect of, if I can forget what it was. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Next. Why are woke pro sports leagues lobbying Congress for gun control? I've never seen a more redundant title in my life. As the United States prepares for its most watched sporting event, this was on Friday, lead up to the Super Bowl, pushing for a reauthorization of the Undetectable Firearms Act of 1988 from Congress. Thanks for the support of our grassroots membership, Gun Owners America, and our allies in Congress was successful in removing the permanent reauthorization of UFA, or must-pass military funding bill. Of course, they'll always fucking weasel it into another bill. That's how they roll. Blah, blah, blah. The NFL, NHL, NBA, and even NASCAR have written a letter to Congress in support of reauthorization for the Undetectable Firearms Act. I don't follow any sports, but to all the burgers who'll watch this, I know NFL's been woke and on the shit list. NHL, same. NBA, definitely. NASCAR's kind of a new one for me, but I'm not overly surprised given the reaction of the fucking news story from a few years ago of how butthurt they were about that. So I'm not overly surprised seeing that either. the more I think about it. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so again, this is kind of just like the usual suspects as far as like large media, either entertainment, sports, and stuff. Like circling the wagons for general commie shit and stuff. And I kind of like this line: professional sporting leagues like the NFL should stick to entertainment and stop attempting to infringe on their customers' rights. Read Disney here. Gun Owners America stands with our allies in Congress in opposition to the reauthorization of the archaic Undetectable Firearms Act. Please call your elected representatives and demand they do the same. Yeah, good luck with that. Actually, I see in the future, immediate future, one of my elected officials making the news. But first things first. Doo-doo-doo. EU bends the knee to farmers, drops key provisions in 2040 climate proposal. The European Commission has bent the knee to protesting farmers and dropping key passages in the proposal for a new 2040 goal aimed at cutting greenhouse gas pollution. So, long story short, again, this is kind of like the Department of Defense thing. They'll like I'm calling it right now. They say that they're dropping all these provisions and stuff, but they're just going to weasel it into something else. Let's be real. Yeah, so most of the well, of course, farmers unions. So most of the farmers unions say like, okay, mission accomplished, go home and stuff. So it's just like, I'm not really buying it. Again, that's just most of the European protests and stuff. I think I have in the pipe. Poland farmers are off doing their own thing. We'll get to that when we get to it. So my neck of the woods. Canadian Member of Parliament wants to criminalize speech that endorse fossil fuels. I shit you not. Bill C-372 seeks penalties up to $1 million and 2 years in prison for promoting fossil fuels as anything less than an existential threat to humanity. Just when you thought Canada couldn't get any more style in this, an MP from the country's far-left NDP party, fuck, I hate the NDP so much, is calling for any speech that promotes fossil fuels, even truthful statements like comparing the relative emissions of natural gas to coal, to be banned and criminalized. MP Charlie Angus from Timmins in Northern Ontario. Goodness gracious, where have I heard that name before? Fuck, I hate Charlie Angus so much. In Northern Ontario, where the average temperature in February went from -7 to -21, fuck you, I get -30 to -40 overnight. Fuck Timmins. As introduced, private members bill C-372 called Fossil Fuels Advertising Act that would prohibit the promotion of fossil fuels except in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Promotion defined as a representation of about a product or service by any means, whether directly or indirectly, including any communication of information about a product or service, its price and distribution that is likely to influence the shape, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors about a product or service. Fuck this 1984 totalitarian bullshit. That which not expressly permit is forbidden. This enactment enacts the Fossil Fuel Advertising Act to prohibit the promotion of fossil fuels except in accordance with provisions of the Act. The only public discourse that would be permitted on the matter would be literary or dramatic representation, that use or depiction of fossil fuels or opinions or commentary provided in either case the author and creator has no ties or receives no consideration directly or indirectly from the fossil fuel industry. So that can really get rid of most of the politicians by their definition as laid out in this act. The preamble calls climate change an existential threat and cites the 2023 forest fire season as pretext, whereas in 2023, Canada experienced the worst wildfire season ever recorded in the country, exceeding the largest area ever burned in a year, totaling more than 7.9 million hectares. There is no mention in multiple cases throughout 2023 fire season, including all the other years, because my town almost got burned down in one of these. such as the Lake Covent fires in Quebec and the infamous Lake Barrington fire in Nova Scotia, which caused was arson, not global boiling. Yes, every year we have a shit ton of fires rip through the northern Ontario, and almost every single one that gets caught is fucking arson. Oh, fancy that. Fuck these assholes. Claim without evidence. The phrase claim without evidence has become staple in corporate media. It belies the baked in partnership reminiscent of the late Soviet era agitprop. This is especially noticeable if anyone in the right of Stalin dares question any precepts of the technocratic socialism, yet Bill C 372 is replete with such claims, whereas air pollution caused by fossil fuels leads to millions of premature deaths globally, including tens of thousands of premature deaths in Canada alone, and a major cause of cancer, respiratory illness, adverse pregnancy outcomes, children's disease, and cardiovascular systems. This is a faith-based statement on par with Al Gore's unhinged shrieking at Davos of 2023 that climate change causes the equivalent of 600,000 Hiroshima-class bombs per day. Wow, hyperbolic much there, Gore? It also runs contrary to quantifiable data from multiple sources and studies showing climate-relevant fatalities have been in freefall over a century. Yes. It's like, look at that go. Yeah, because it's shit like this here, where it's like the Western world is duty bound by the rest of the world to do all this shit, but everyone else gets carte blanche. Doesn't seem fair. It also sells science that more humans die every year from extreme cold and do heat or warming effects by a factor of 2 to 1. Bill C 372 further asserts, without evidence, am I doing this right, that fossil fuel production and consumption has resulted in a national public health crisis of substantial and pressing concern in a way that's similar to the public health crisis caused by tobacco consumption. Oh my god. Conflating one thing with another. Wow. By Statistics Canada's own measure, tobacco still kills 48,000 Canadians every year. This bill is claiming that every day, an equivalent of 131 Canadians are dropping dead because of fossil fuel-induced climate change. If true, why not cut the total problem of climate and tobacco-related deaths in half by simply banning smoking outright? There's only one problem: free speech. Parliament is of the opinion that fossil fuel advertising currently deploys techniques which knowingly misleads the public and fails to disclose health and environmental harms associated with their use, impeding informed consumer decision making, undermining public support for effective climate action. By impeding informed decision making on part of the Canadians, he probably means any criticism of exceptionally higher carbon taxes, which get unfairly applied according to the whims of political favoritism anyway. Yep. Or drawing attention to ridiculous symbolic non solutions like wind turbines, or forcing Canadians to pay for expensive heat pumps in sub zero climes. The thing's supposed to keep you from freezing, but you have to keep it from freezing. Yes, many such cases. Further, the companies and scientists gainfully employed by Canada's energy industry, which is responsible for 7.5% of Canada's entire GDP, with 75% of that in Alberta, aren't allowed to defend their industry or livelihoods from the onslaught of junk science or ideological fanaticism, or to counter it with measured, rational, science-based counterfactuals. While Bill C 372 asserts that the protection of the environment is a valid use of federal criminal law power, it would be stretched to apply provisions of the Environmental Protection Act to the normal course of operations of the energy industry, let alone free speech. There's no mention in the Canadian Constitution or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 2A of the latter declares the fundamental right of all Canadians, freedom, conscience, and religion, although nobody seems to have the right when it comes to time to refuse COVID jabs. Ha. And of course, 2B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, expression, including freedom of the press and other media communication. Like it or not, communication includes promotion and defending oneself and taking a firm, defensible stance that we have a moral duty to provide abundant power to society through practical use of cleaner fossil fuels. That said, the Canadian government, to which the NDP are the junior partner in the governing Liberal Socialist coalition, has no compunctions about trammling Canadians' constitutional rights. The federal judge recently ruled the Trudeau government's invocation of the Emergencies Act that saw Canadians' bank accounts seized along with the violent suppression of the Freedom Convoy protests was both illegal and unconstitutional. The federal government intends to appeal the ruling. I hope they get fucked. Hey, Charlie Angus NDP, if you live in Canada and are not freezing to death this winter, you can thank the oil and gas industry. Ooh, yeah, good. For the record, this is the guy on the left is Charlie Angus, and the right hand guy is Singh, the head of the NDP. Realistically, C372 is about as much chance of passing as the Liz Warren bill, but the NDPs do prop up Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party in the slim minority ruling coalition. They could, in theory, jam it through. After that, it would be illegal for me to observe the people of Timmins, Ontario, Charlie Angus' home riding, would not survive a single winter without fossil fuels, since I hold shares in Imperial Oil and Canadian natural resources. They might be constituted benefiting from the proceeds of climate extermination or something. The fact that the bill was even entered into parliamentary register is a testament to how a touch ruling liberal socialist coalition is. I leave you with the clip with the federal environmental minister, Stephen Gabolt, shrieking climate change is real like a total nutcase in Canada House Commons. I watched this earlier, it's fucking cringe. So, I don't know. I shall continue to talk anonymously on my platform of choice right now until I can no longer do so. I fear a day will come. But in other spicy news, Venezuela deploys tanks, armored carriers to Guyana border. So this is the okay. This is the follow up. I think I actually have the article coming up in somewhere buried somewhere further on. Yeah, I do. I'm just gonna open up a later one because actually more relevant. Okay. So tied with the Venezuela deploys tanks to the Guyana border. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So it's like they're totally not going to pull a rush on this one. Trust me, guys. Totally legit and all that shit. But this is kind of more in terms of pushback from Exxon's Guyana oil drilling plans anger Venezuela. ExxonMobil's drilling plans offshore Guyana have angered Venezuela. Simmering dispute between Guyana and Venezuela escalated at the end of last year. Analysis see meager chances of Venezuela-Guyana dispute would escalate further. Saw Maduro's referendum threat to annex a large part of Guyana's territory has moved to rally a nationalist vote. So, long story short, ExxonMobil is shooting out a couple of exploratory drill holes offshore, and this has gotten Venezuela into a dizzy of sorts. So, yeah, ExxonMobil's kind of just like big dick energy thing is just like, fuck that guy, and going ahead with exploration, drilling, uh, under Guyana's uh, purview. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how this pans out. I know how this is going to pan out, but I wait for a bated breath for Maduro to pull a funny. Yes. Cisco to fire thousands, adding to the fire hose of tech layoffs since beginning 2024. So it looks like, so long story short with this one here is Cisco is going to lay off a shit ton of people and replace them with, and I quote, AI chat GPT. I'm still having memories of years ago when like when a lot of workers were getting laid off because of automation and stuff, and then like all these stupid like commie bullshit pricks were just like, LOL, just learn the code, bro. And now, like the AI machine learning is coming for like their jobs and stuff. I'm just like, oh, let me get my little tiny violin. Eat shit. Okay, I like this little section. Let's see. Although economic factors are a main reason for tech layoffs, Lee noted many companies are citing a race for artificial intelligence as a factor as they are shifting resources to focus on AI talent, according to analysis by CompTIA, which tracks employment trends in the tech industry. Job postings in artificial intelligence are requiring AI skill increase from about 2,000 in December to January to 17,479. I do feel most of the layoffs have happened and companies are going to start to rebound, said Bert Bean, chief executive officer of staffing company Insight Global, but it's still very uncertain. He expects the market to remain that way about next 2 quarters until Fed really comes out and starts to cut interest rates. Good luck for that, Bert, who clearly has zero conflicts of interest. Oh god, I can't even. And also good luck to anyone else who believes the BS from the BLS. The employment is falling instead of here's the truth covers the last few weeks. Okay, so Twitch. I remember when the report of Twitch laying off 35% workforce. Let's see, Roomba 31, Hasbro at 20. I remember that specifically. LA Times at 20, Spotify 17, Levi's at 15, Xerox at 15, Qualtrics at 14, Wayfair at 13, Duolingo at 10. I remember reading that one. Washington Post at 10, Snap at 10, eBay at 9, Business Insider 8, PayPal 7, Okta 7, Charles Schwab 6, DocuSign 6, UPS 2, BlackRock 3, Citigroup 2,000 employees, Pixar 1,300 employees. Oh, yeah. The fat is being trimmed, and I shall not shed a tear. How wokeness took over. So this is another one of those wordy essays that actually really does do a good job of kind of condensing a lot of repeated topics we cover here and stuff. So it's a good read, but I'm not going to go over it too much. I do like it for another reason. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes of all time. As Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. In other words, politics follow culture. That means in some cases, markets ultimately follow culture. That's just how it goes. Shit, I like my way of saying it is shit rolls downhill. Also, bonus points. Yeah, this essay mentions Yuri Bezmenov. Always points for that. And so yeah, it's just usual 1984 stuff we cover every time here, but it's still a good read. Okay, this one's a little wild. 200-foot steel radio tower stolen in Alabama. How do you make a 200-foot steel tower radio tower disappear? Who knows? At this point, maybe we should start worrying less about the rise of looting and thefts in major U.S. cities and start testing thieves for above average engineering and problem solving skills. I can't even. Hey, maybe as part of new diversity initiative, we could even get them involved in the space program. Oh my god. Regardless, this inquiry is what WJLX station general manager Brett Elmore finds himself asking in Alabama after a 200-foot radio tower was stolen. So that's pretty much all it was. It was just like they went in to do some maintenance, and guys were like, "Hey, tower's missing." It's like, "Are you sure you're at the right spot?" No, we're definitely at the right spot. The tower's just fucking gone. It's just like, and they're just like, "Okay." But we see this shit all the time, like people tearing down like utility wires for like and stripping copper and all that shit and stuff. It's just like, fuck. Truly an empire in decline. I just realized a funny number. Harvard renews COVID-19 vaccine mandate joining 69 other schools. I would say nice, but this news article is not nice. Students at Harvard University will continue to require take COVID-19 vaccine in order to register for the upcoming semester. Fuck secondary education at this point. Holy fucking shit. So apparently, some of these knobs still require you to be totally vaxxed up all the jabs and just like be totally coked out of your mind and dead. Covering over the controversies, we covered all this before and stuff, but the real takeaway is that apparently a bunch of these fucking useless pieces of shit post secondary education centers of enlightenment require you to comply, you fucking serfs. So I do like this line. It's idiotic, and history will not reflect kindly on these elite institutions. I agree. I agree. I'm not gonna lie. I barely got a few minutes into the Putin and Tucker Carlson interview before I totally got bored out of my mind and stuff. And it's kind of funny seeing all the memes of like, so tell me, why did you invade Ukraine? It's like, well, it all started with the Big Bang and shit like that. There, but it's just like, I don't know. But as far as this article goes, Putin tells West Russia cannot be defeated in Ukraine, but is ready for negotiated peace, which means he's running out of steam. And if I remember right, Biden immediately after the interview came out said to the effect of "We're never gonna stop." So I don't know which old man is going to give up steam first. Place your bets. Yeah, this one here is the thing that's really memeing right now. Putin on the origins of the Ukraine conflict and stuff, which is kind of funny because if it's like, well, we used to own it. Effectively, what it comes down to is like we used to own it. Okay, by that logic, the Mongols owned your ass back in the day, even before that. So, what you're telling me is that Mongolia should rise up and take back its rightful clay, is what I'm getting. If just to maintain on his level of logic. If we want to use that kind of logic, we have to remain consistent. No double standard. One standard will do just fine. So I don't know. Honestly, at the end of the day, the only real good thing to come out of the Tucker Carlson Putin interview is that it showed the world and confirmed what everyone knows is that Putin is off his fucking rocker. That goes for a lot of war leaders nowadays, so that's not really narrowing it down. But Putin's particular brand of kookiness was on display, and for everyone to see. So it's not terribly surprised there. Okay, yeah, this was mentioned before in the other Canada article. It has to be done after court victory for freedom. Convoy Canadians ready to sue. Several freedom convoy protesters, buoyed by recent victory in Canadian federal court, says they're preparing to sue the federal government, banks, and the police that brought the 2022 protests to a heated end. Long story short, for those who have no long-term memory, because of the coup, all our truckers protested, and they pretty much got arrested and their bank accounts seized and stuff. And it's only recently that the federal court ruled that the Emergency Measures Act, which was enacted after the little hullabaloo protests in Quebec back in the day, this was actually the first time the Emergency Act was ever used, and by golly, it was used as the hammer that it was intended to. And of course, using the hammer as a hammer, not terribly surprised how things went, but for whatever reason, Sainer has prevailed, and the Federal Court of Canada ruled that the use of the act was totally hella super illegal. But whether anything comes from that, who fucking knows? Going over a couple little anecdotal case studies of people who got wrapped up in all this here stuff. Yeah, and fuck this one in particular. Hours after Justice Mosley's ruling was issued, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland said a Liberal government intends to fight it. We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary. However, we do not agree with the decision, and respectfully, we will be appealing it. Oh, cupcake! You didn't get your way, and you're gonna go crying. Oh, fuck you! Fuck these pricks. Yeah. So I'm really like I am legitimately rooting for these guys because again, totalitarian government that is Canada. We are a literal hellhole, so if sanity can prevail even in a small little corner of it, I'm all for it. Open, you bastard. Bugs on the menu. Biden's climate change and ESG policies threaten food supply, think tank warns. Who could have foreseen this coming? Oh my fucking god. A new report from the right leaning think tank, the Buckeye Institute, I like that name, sounded the alarm on Biden administration's net zero climate control policies and the agenda items threaten U.S. food supply. The report release. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so long story short, the report says we're going to hamstring ourselves to appease no one and cause people to starve and die, is what the report comes down to. You know, like the threats to the food supply, you know, national security, all the usual shit and stuff we've covered before. So it's kind of just like, yeah, no shit. You know, like we've covered before of how like China and Bill Gates own like a fuck ton of like America's farming land, and that there is just fucking wild and shit like that. Eats the bugs. So, you know. Speaking of national security and being complete idiots, rushed EV approach will undermine our national security. So, again, this is just from the other angle that from EVs, particularly specifically the manufacturing pipeline in terms of the raw resources, specifically rare earth elements and all the mining and shit that would have to go into it and stuff. And most of that shit is tied up in China because, you know, again, China rapes and pillages, and they don't give a shit about the environment, so they do it cheaper than everyone else. And so, uh, you know, even if you try to onshore back all the industry back to the United States, given all the regulations, it's still going to be expensive as hell to make, and you know, you just can't outcompete with China because China rapes and pillages. That's all it comes down to. So of course it's a fucking matter of national security because your main enemy has you by the balls on this industry you're trying to force down people's throats. So, shit we covered before. Who's to blame for the elite extreme left? This is another good read, but it's another essay I'm not really going to go deep into and stuff. But it kind of puts everything in a nice little bow tie for the elites and you know, the powers that be and what they want to do. And you know, again, the destabilization of America. So you get rid of the last bastion of freedom, and then they can institute their will upon the world without anyone able to stop them. That's all it ever comes down to. Speaking of national security and destabilization, Chinese engineer allegedly stole trade secrets technology for detecting nuclear missile launches from the Department of Justice. A Chinese born researcher has been arrested for allegedly stealing trade secret technologies developed for U.S. government to detect nuclear missile launches and to track ballistic and hypersonic missiles, according to the Department of Justice. Gong, 57, of San Jose, California, was arrested in San Jose on February 6th, prosecutors said. Where was he working? Worked as an engineer for a research and development company based in Malibu, California. I'm too lazy to look up what defense contractors are out of there. I'm sure it's probably just easy to figure out which company he worked for. Transferred 3,600 files from his work laptop to 3 personal storage devices from March 2023 to April 2023 before he got caught. Yeah, so again, we've covered Chinese industrial espionage pretty much every other week. We do these things, and it's just like, seriously, just lock shit down. That's all you have to do. Lock shit down, vet, kick out, take back all the land they own. Easy peasy. Fuck them. In very good news of police actually being based for once, hostage taking Iranian migrant shot dead by Swiss police in train incident. Swiss police killed a 32-year-old Iranian asylum seeker who boarded a train armed with an axe and a knife and held 15 hostages for 4 hours while traveling between Balmes and Yverdon-les-Bains in the western region of the country. After rounding up 14 hostages, the man forced the train driver to leave his post and joined them when the train stopped with its doors closed at the station. Police, who were alerted by other passengers on the train, were able to board it around 10:15 after sealing off the area to allow negotiators to establish contact via the hostages' mobile phones. The police attacked at around 10:15 p.m., killing the man while the hostages, some of whom were tied up, all escaped safely. Swiss Info Channel reports a stun grenade was used to distract the attacker, footage which uploaded to X. Yeah, name your archive. Yeah, fuck it. Let's see. The man's motivations had not been established, nor his psychological state. He's a fucking go fucker. That's all you need to know. Yeah, well, at least fucker's dead. Get his 72 virgins in heaven or whatever. Speaking of another shit stain, UK cops ridiculed for saying still a large London asset attacker could be north, south, east, west, or abroad. The London asset attacker is nowhere to be found, with police being ridiculed for saying he could be north, south, east, west, or abroad. 12 people were injured, including 2 children, when Abdul Aziz, goatfucker extraordinaire, threw a corrosive substance at them in Clapham, South London last week. Police initially failed to put out a proper description of the subject for nearly 24 hours, and he has been on loose ever since. Now authorities are facing ridicule for basically admitting they have no idea where Goldfucker has gone. He could have gone north, he could have gone east, south, west, or he could have gone abroad, said Metropolitan Police Commander Seville, adding that his body could also be in the River Thames. Long way of saying, we don't fucking know where the Goldfucker is. Maybe if Goldfucker had sent a transphobic tweet, he could have been caught immediately. Oh, savage. Compared to the manhunt for Goldfucker, an illegal immigrant from Afghanistan, to that of Raoul Moat, a British native. Moat's disappearance was one of the biggest stories of the decade, and the police operation to find him, the subject of 24/7 news coverage. Well, Izzy's disappearance is now barely a headline at all a week later. And I wonder why. Should have been deported years ago after committing multiple sex crimes. Shocking. Although he was given asylum on a third application. Fucking Christ. I hope he's at the bottom of the Thames. Cause fuck him. Coming back to the farmers' protests, as I said before, Poland's doing its own thing, separate to all the other ones. Well, the EU caved earlier this week to demands that drop key climate provisions and punitive taxes aimed at cutting greenhouse gas pollution. Polish farmers on Friday launched a series of protests against EU climate policy as well as the economic prioritization of cheap Ukrainian imports over their own. Mostly for the Ukraine thing because again, basic economics. Ukraine farmers are flooding the European market with cheap crops and is devaluing everyone else's stuff. So, Polish farmers, among others, are, not having a good time right now. And they're kind of like, we really should clamp down on all these imports. And of course, the governments don't want to. So, that's why they're protesting. Yep, yeah, that's really how it comes down to that. I'm not going to read this one verbatim, but it's actually a real funny read. An open letter to the Davos crowd. Dear self-style global elites. Uh, Again, this Robert Jenkins via the Brownstone Institute. This is pretty much one giant fuck you letter to the powers that be, and it's a really good read. So, uh, I was entertained. Let's see. More red flags than before 9/11. Ohio sheriff warns American people of worsening border invasion. In other news, water is wet. But goddamn, look at that mustache. Mighty fine. Mighty fine Wilford Brimley. How's it going? Oh yeah, uh, a bunch of sheriffs had a meeting with the feds, and pretty much the FBI director was just like, "Yeah, this here shit's getting out of control," and of course all the sheriffs were just like, "Well, yeah, no shit." So I just like this note. We're going to start training civilians. We've offered classes to train civilians. Yeah, he's going to fucking deputize the whole fucking state. Mark my words. There's gonna be a local law enforcement uprising before before too long. Mark my words on that one. Okay, here's something I totally agree with, and I've been saying for years at this point. Mail-in ballot fraud study finds Trump almost certainly won 2020. Yeah, no shit. The fact that the Biden administration is completely illegitimate is not really a shock to me or anyone who has two eyes who was watching the fucking election that year. So yeah, so pretty much the study came out. It's like, yeah, this here shit looks dodgy. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no shit. So I don't know. Anything gonna come from it? No. Is it gonna mean anything 2024? Probably not. Better late than never. Yeah. Almost seems to be a trend. Speaking of American politics, this one here actually tickles me. Dems call for 25th Amendment against Trump comes back to haunt. Thursday's news crescendo ending in the calamitous presidential press conference carried hidden lessons for both parties. Be careful what you wish on your political enemies, they could monumentally backfire. So long story short, since the Democrats have been hemming and hawing and calling for Trump to be disbarred from going for president again on based on the 25th Amendment and all that jazz and stuff. And even when he was in power, they were calling for it, to get rid of him and all that stuff. But now, like with Biden being like plain as day for everyone to see, who mentally unfit, all of a sudden it's just like, hey, 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 assholes, time to eat crow, motherfucker. So, you know, this is a problem since time immemorial with idiots, because when they get in power, they think they're going to be in power forever, and nothing's ever going to come back to haunt them. So like they pick on they'll rake their enemies over the coals and not expect any repercussions to come from it and stuff. And again, this is psychopaths 101 and stuff. They think they're top shit, and they're actually not. So I don't know. I was very entertained, and I'm kind of curious to see if anything comes from it. Again, I doubt, but one can hope. Ah, yes. If you want to control people, you have to control the CO2, aka you are the carbon they want to get rid of. So apparently, this Roos fellow is kind of just calling out the powers that be. Is like it's like having a for want of a better word, red pill moment of calling out the powers that be, saying that like where the carbon you want to get rid of and stuff, and it's just like, okay, good for you. You managed to rub two brain cells together. Will it actually mean anything? Yeah, I really need to record myself saying, it's like, will it amount to anything? No, probably not. I guess one's kind of neat. The biologist in me is not completely dead. Mutant wolves of Chernobyl appear to be resistant to cancer. Stalker confirmed. After nearly 40 years, mutated wolves roaming the deserted streets of Chernobyl exclusion zone appear to have developed cancer resistance, according to Princeton evolutionary biologist and toxicologist Kara Love, who has been studying how Chernobyl wolves have survived for generations while facing exposure to radioactive particles. Roughly 100,000 people were evacuated from the 1,000 square mile exclusion zone in 1986 and has remained abandoned ever since. Radiation still poses a risk with no humans around. Wildlife such as wolves and horses have flourished. In 2014, Levin and a team of researchers visited the exclusion zone, attached a radio collars to the wolves in order to track them. She said they were able to obtain real-time measurements to which were the wolves and how much radiation they're exposed to. What's more, after taking blood samples, the team discovered the wolves are exposed to upwards of 11.28 milligrams of radiation daily for their entire lives, more than 6 times the legal safety limit for a human. Water. They found that the wolf's immune system displays similar properties to cancer patients undergoing radiation treatment, including specific parts of the animal's genetic information that appear resilient to increased cancer risk. A lot of research in humans have found mutations that increase cancer risk with the presence of the variant BRCA gene, making it more likely a woman might develop breast or ovarian cancer, for example. But Miss Love's work has sought to identify protective mutations that increase the odds of surviving cancer. Report Sky. Love presented her findings at the annual meeting of Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology in Seattle, Washington last month. I don't know, I just think it's neat. I think it's neat. Life finds a way. I guess when actually, again, usual shit. CDC is now retaliating against its own scientists for wrong mask research. Ah, in a congressional hearing last November on restoring trust in science, good luck with that. CDC Director Mandy Cohen kept evading questions on whether she would bring back mask mandates for toddlers. We have a lot of different tools to protect our children, Dr. Cohen said during her cagey response. 6 days later, BMJ Journal published a study that found mask recommendations for children not supported by scientific evidence. Yeah, so long short of it is that the study looked at the difference between a regular surgical mask, which is the loose floppy one, versus an N95, which is the one with the nose pinch. That's really the only difference to these things. And pretty much the funny thing is that the CDC's own research contradicts what she wants to do, so she's clamping down on these studies and stuff. So it's kind of funny. It's just like the CDC reports this, but it's not the current flavor of the month, so they want to bury it and get rid of it. So it's just like it's also tiring. It really is. Yeah. Guess what the CD findings suggest? No difference. Here's the health analysis. So it's just like, yeah. Eh. Okay, covered the Guyana oil drilling. Here's the last one in the past. Hildebeest. Hildebeest admits Biden's age is a legitimate issue as Trump urges mandatory cognitive tests for all candidates. Well, how are the turntables? Something just changed. Instead of an overwhelming avalanche of gaslit headlines and bullshit punditry projecting mental unfitness on the opposition, as we have seen from every Democratic operative and mainstream media lackey over the past 5 years, is different this time, since the special counsel's independent report official raised questions about President Biden's mental acuity, describing him as a well meaning elderly man with poor memory, as we covered in the other one. Finding anyone willing to actually defend Biden against these accusations in any other way but proclaiming that, well, Trump appointed her has been nigh on impossible, even on Sunday's political talk shows, which seem designed to do just this week in, week out for years. Mentally unfit for trial means mentally unfit to run the country. I agree. Instead, the opposite. Some actual reflection on a Democrat that maybe, just maybe, all the glitches, stumbles, stammers, gaffes, shaking hands with no one, angry outbursts, misremembering, and talking to dead people are a thing after all. Here's top Clinton advisor Paul Begala practically admitting defeat live on CNN. This is terrible for Democrats, and anyone with a functioning brain knows that this is going to be a really rough, ugly, unpleasant campaign. Yes. And here's the horse's mouth herself, no less immortal than Hillary Clinton, admitting to MSNBC's Alex Wagner in an interview aired on Saturday that Biden's age is an issue. I talk with people in the White House all the time, and they know it's an issue, but as I like to say, look, it's a legitimate issue, Clinton told. Of course, she had this legitimate issue for former President Donald Trump, who is 3.5 years younger than Biden. But it gets better. As former Obama advisor David Axelrod declared Friday, Joe Biden's angry reaction to special counsel Robert Hur's report suggests that his memory has faded, only served to reinforce a meme that's out there adding that Biden's cognitive acuity is a problem. The central meme is that is hurting the president is this issue of age is a big barrier for urge. Also noting you can't unring a bell. Yeah, no shit. So yeah, pretty much like I just find it funny that the Democrats know they're screwed at this point and stuff. So I've been saying this in the lead up to this year that 2024 is going to be fucking wild. It's going to be wild as shit. Speaking of wild, Secretary of Defense Austin hospitalized again. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has been readmitted to hospital, the Pentagon said on Sunday afternoon. Hey, at least he told someone this time. Doesn't say what he's in for again, but hey, at least we know where he's at this time. Hey-oh. I think it's kind of funny for a follow up that like where in the world is Secretary of Defense Austin? Gaslight Supreme. America says we don't bear responsibility for border crisis. Fuck you, you fuckers. We're the reason why it's Swiss cheese right now. The Biden administration can't stop lying to the American public. I would argue the American government's never not lied to the American public, but I digress. On Sunday, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has the audacity to claim that the Biden administration doesn't bear responsibility for the border crisis, despite, among other things, terminating national emergency at the southwest border, revoking a Trump-era executive order that was designed to ensure that there was a meaningful enforcement of the U.S. immigration laws, issuing an executive order protecting the DACA recipients, unveiling U.S. Citizenship Act that would provide amnesty to millions of illegal aliens in the U.S., demonstrating intent to reward illegal border crossers with a path to citizenship, announcing a 100-day memorandum on deportations and immigration enforcement, effectively providing amnesty to criminal and other removable aliens. It's a really long list. No shit. And since Biden was sworn in president in January 2021, there has been at least 7 million encounters near the southern border, while the government deals with a backlog of more than 3 million asylum cases in U.S. courts. Appearing in NBC's Meet the Press, America has claimed it's certainly a crisis, and while we don't bear responsibility for a broken system, we're doing a tremendous amount within the system, but fundamentally, Congress is the only one who can fix it. And of course, here are pushback from journalists sitting across from him. Oh, God. Yeah. So yeah, it's just gaslighting bullshit. Anyone who still believes that, well, they never had a brain to begin with. Let's be real. I like this one. Beware of the philanthropaths. I think this is made up word, and the meme below perfectly captures the tyrannical billionaire psychopaths who seem to have gained control of the world using their billions while portraying themselves as the savior of humanity. Whenever I see a term foundation related to one of these psychopaths, I know the foundation is nothing more than an affront to achieve their evil agenda. And if ever there was a poster boy for philanthropists across the world, it would be Mr. Depopulation Vaccine Pusher Farmer Bill Gates and his Gates Foundation. I agree. But it's pretty much going over the usual powers that be stuff of like trying to control, rule the world. And how you rule the world? Well, you have to get rid of the only people who will stand up against you, which is what remains of the American Empire, and yada yada yada, stuff we've covered before, but it's still a good read. Fuck you, Gremlin. This one. Oh yeah, so this is another essay one. When is good for you too good? Uh, largely it boils down to the thing we've circled on for a while. That being you are the carbon they want to get rid of and stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna give that a pass. It still was a good read though. Circling back to the election, the coming 2024 leftist election grift. It's almost a redundant statement because we know it's going to happen. Okay, this is just going over. This is going over a couple of case studies of actually proven voter fraud from the previous election stuff, and projecting like, okay, is this going to happen again? Spoiler alert, yes. Oh, this one amused me. Crowd sets Waymo driverless car ablaze in lawless San Francisco. Lawless San Francisco is a redundant statement. A Waymo self-driving car was targeted and deliberately set ablaze by a group of people in San Francisco's Chinatown on Saturday evening, based Chinamen for once. This incident is part of a rising trend of hostility towards autonomous vehicles highlighted by an individual late last year on X. The AI crusades have begun. Suffer not the abominable intelligence. Local media outlet NBC Bay Area reports a self-driving Jaguar was traveling on Jackson Street between Stockton and Grant around 2100 local time when 10 to 15 people attacked it. Videos and next showed a group of people vandalizing the self-driving car. Oh my god, reflux. Fiery but mostly peaceful protest. Many such cases. We are working closely with local safety officials to respond to the situation, Waymo said in a statement to the San Francisco Standard. The startup added the car was not transporting any passengers at the time of the incident. This comes after a string of attacks on self driving cars across the progressive crime ridden metro area. Again, redundant statement is redundant. So, yeah, we know people are going to like Nig's gonna nog, but you're gonna be seeing a lot more of Rise Against the Machines. And closing off on the wild trip that is, I don't even know anymore. Biden announces he's on TikTok a year after he banned it on all federal devices. Joe Biden's campaign announced Sunday that he is now on TikTok, despite the fact that Biden signed a bill banning the platform on all devices assigned to federal employees a year ago. Biden's X account reposted a cringe video from his campaign account in which he answers questions about his Super Bowl preferences. Several respondents point out that Biden signed into law a limited TikTok ban in December 2022 as part of the 4,126 page spending bill. Furthermore, in March last year, Biden threatened to ban TikTok altogether unless the app's Chinese owners agreed to spin off their shares of the social media platform. The ultimatum was made by Biden's Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States in response to concerns about the amount of data TikTok trawls and the platforms linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Again, redundant statement is redundant. In the same month, the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee voted to advance the bill titled Deterring America's Technological Adversaries, which cleared the way for full ban on the app. A similar bipartisan bill called Restricting the Emergency of Security Threats and Risk Information Communications Technology Restrict Act was introduced in the Senate around the same time. And going over a lot of tweets poking fun at Biden being Biden, but again, this isn't Biden doing this here shit. It's his fucking press team, but his press team are fucking retards who don't pay attention to what their boss does. But then again, their boss doesn't exactly pay attention to what he does either. So, moot point. And that's it. That's all I got. I'm stuffy. My reflex is on the warpath. I think I'm gonna call it here. Thanks for coming. Take it easy. Later.